Hello, my name is Ken Arscott, your narrator. In this training video, we're going to discuss the responsibilities that you have as a security officer while on patrol regarding fire. We will also go over some techniques for maintaining fire safety at your posts. Before we start, let's first review some of the national fire statistics. As reported by the National Fire Protection Association a few years back, there were over 3,000 civilians that lost their lives as a result of fire. There were over 16,000 civilians injured that occurred as the result of a fire. There were 118 firefighters that were killed while on duty. Fire killed more Americans than all natural disasters combined. 84% of all civilian fire deaths occurred in residence. There were an estimated 1.5 million fires, and direct property loss due to fires was estimated at over $15 billion. That's billion with a B. This figure includes the California wildfires that had an estimated loss of $1.4 billion. There were an estimated 32,500 intentionally set structure fires, better known as arson, which resulted in 315 civilian deaths. These intentionally set structure fires caused an estimated $866 million in property damage. So you can see that it's obvious that fire is a significant threat. A fire can occur under any circumstance, anywhere, at any time. Before we begin, it's important that you understand what it takes for a fire to ignite. Think of a triangle. It has three sides. Take away any one of the sides and it will collapse. A fire is also like a triangle in that it has three sides: heat, fuel, and oxygen or air. Take away any one of those and the fire will go out. For example, take away the heat and the fire goes out. This can be accomplished with water or fire extinguisher chemicals. Take away the fuel and the fire goes out. If there's no fuel, such as wood, paper, plastic, gasoline, or other combustible materials, there's nothing to burn, so there would be no fire. Finally, take away the oxygen, meaning the air, and the fire will also go out. This can be accomplished by smothering the flame with foam or a wet blanket. As we go through this training video, keep that fire triangle in mind. In most jurisdictions in the United States, by law, a person must call the fire department if they witness a fire. Throughout this training video, we'll be talking and demonstrating various fire causes, fire safety, and fire control. Regardless of which subject being covered, remember this: your primary responsibility is to call 911 as soon as possible. We will discuss the causes of fires, how to conduct a systematic fire safety sweep of the property. You'll also learn how to report a fire, what to look for during regular patrol rounds, fire prevention, an overview of how to use fire extinguishers and their purpose, because some types of fire extinguishers should not be used on certain types of fire. We will also familiarize you in the operations of automatic fire detection and suppression systems, evacuation and exit procedures, elevator and escalator use during emergencies. When someone goes into a business, they have the right to feel safe from fires and other emergencies. If you're assigned to a business, part of that responsibility becomes yours. While you're not expected to fight a fire or rescue people, you are expected to be aware of hazards that could cause fires and to alert the occupants and the fire department in the event of a fire. In the case of an active fire, smoke, or fire emergency, you must, without delay, notify the fire department and evacuate the premises immediately. Many times this can be accomplished at the same time using your cell phone and pulling the fire alarm. The fastest way to alert the occupants is to pull the fire alarm pull station. Once the bell or warning signal is activated, you should then check to see that the emergency exits are operable and that the elevators are on the ground floor and that they're deactivated. In the event the alarm system at your post does not automatically bring the elevators to the ground floor and deactivate them, bring the elevators to the ground floor yourself and block the doors open with anything at hand, such as chairs, tables, etc. The reason why this is so important is that if a fire is on a particular floor, the heat from the fire could melt the elevator call buttons in the hall. This could cause the elevator to respond to that floor. If there are passengers aboard when the door opened, the passengers' lives would be in jeopardy. Always bring the elevators to the ground floor so that the occupants are forced to take the stairwells. Stairwells in high-rise buildings are concrete and they're the safest from a fire. As a security officer, you'll be assigned to protect many different types of properties. It's imperative that you become familiar with your post instructions. They contain evacuation procedures and fire safety instructions at each post that you work. While on patrol, look for potential hazards that could occur. Know where the automatic fire detection and suppression systems are. What are your responsibilities regarding these systems? The process is automatic, but in other situations, you might be required to follow a certain procedure. Does the post have smoke detectors that are not hardwired into a central monitoring station? If so, then you would be required to call 911, alert the occupants, and call your supervisor or management. Industrial and manufacturing properties are unique in the types of processes and hazards that exist due to their particular operations. Some high-rise buildings are termed mixed use. This means that they have residential and commercial occupants in the same building. Institutional buildings such as schools, hospitals, and prisons also present unique hazards to fire safety and evacuation of occupants. The property manager and safety experts must develop site-specific plans to handle emergencies to prevent the loss of life and property. These plans should be included as part of your post instructions also. Make sure that you read and understand them. If you're not sure or you don't understand something that's required, advise your supervisor for clarification. You don't want to be guessing when lives and property are at stake. The proper procedure for reporting a fire emergency, it's pretty simple. Call 911 from any telephone or cell phone. Each post that you work at should have a specific procedure for contacting the fire department. In some cases, you'll be required to pull the alarm pull station. In other situations, you'll be required to activate the alarm panel. But in all cases, you should always call 911 to make sure that notification was made. High-rise buildings often have an operations center or a central monitoring center to handle calls, maintenance personnel, security, and emergency operations. Many smaller facilities normally don't have an outside central communication center, but they're connected with a central station through either the fire panel or an alarm panel. Regardless of the type of facility, all security officers must be trained in the specific procedures for notifying the authorities in the event of an emergency. Remember, when in doubt, call 911. Never assume that someone else has made the call. Never assume that the automatic system has made the notification. You must always make the call. Personal observation is first on the list. This is because most security officers work on sites when businesses are closed and they are the only ones that are on the property. Notification to you by someone else. A telephone call to you from a tenant. By radio from another security officer. Visual or odor of smoke or fire, which actually falls under personal observation. Strange odors are not necessarily from smoke, but they could be from hazardous chemicals also. These can be just as deadly. Visual or audible fire or smoke alarm equipment, such as flashing lights, sirens, or horns. When you personally discover a fire, you need to sound the alarm and notify the fire department immediately. Which comes first, That depends upon the location of the fire pull station. In most cases, you can call the fire department and at the same time pull the closest fire pull station. After that, you should notify your central dispatch office. If you don't have a central dispatch office, notify your supervisor or manager at once. Next, close the door or doors to deny any access to others and begin the evacuation procedures, which we'll go into in more detail later in the session. Continue to safely monitor conditions until you're relieved by the fire department or a security supervisor. Do not attempt to fight the fire unless you've been properly trained. As I explained earlier, the most important duty when on fire watch is fire prevention. This is a responsibility that must be on your mind the whole time while on patrol. It's also true when you're assigned to a stationary assignment, such as a desk or an entrance. Unless you're assigned to a cold start shift, which means that you're the first security officer assigned to that post for that day, and you're not relieving any other security officer. If you are relieving another security officer, always require them to brief you regarding everything of importance that happened prior to your shift. This is especially important if there was a fire or even a suspected fire. Fire can smolder undetected for days and all of a sudden burst into flames. Always check that all fire detection, the suppression system, and communication systems are operating. This can be accomplished most of the time by indicator lights that are on the panels. If they are active, note this in your daily log report. If they're not functioning properly, notify your supervisor and make sure that you document it either in an incident report or on your daily log. Systems that are functioning properly are only half the operation. You need to make sure that you're familiar with the operation of these systems and what the procedures are regarding your responsibilities. In the event of a fire, and even though the system is working, you still need to make sure that you call 911. If you have control of a fire system or a fire panel, never delay an alarm. Call 911. Sound the alarm and call 911 immediately. At times, all or part of an automatic fire detection and suppression system could be taken out of service for maintenance repair or new construction. Be sure to be familiar with the affected areas and give them special attention. Make sure that they're tagged out of service. If not, contact your supervisor and be advised if you should tag the pull station, sprinkler head, or audio alert unit. Another situation that you should be concerned with are hazardous areas under construction or maintenance, such as painting. Many times there are flammable solvents, welding, soldering, electrical work, things like that. If you discover anything that has the potential of igniting, find the construction supervisor and let them know about it immediately. Always indicate in your daily log a description of what you observed, including the time, date, and name of the construction supervisor. The final step is to document the disposition. Did they clean it up, or did they leave it as you saw it? This should only be done by a certified fire sprinkler mechanic or a certified inspector. If you're working in a high-rise building that's being renovated, get to know the contractors who will be working in the building. They'll be there after normal business hours, and get to know what they'll be doing and exactly where they'll be working. If a strange person tries to come into the building, contact the construction manager to approve his or her access to the building. If a construction manager requests that you deactivate the sprinkler or suppression system, politely refuse and advise them that you don't have the authority. Ask them if they want you to contact management, who will then send a qualified mechanic or inspector.